Hey Dale, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about something that I call core spotting. It's you sitting on the sidelines or just somewhere and watching all of the kids and the skywriters grow up in front of your eyes. Tell us about that.
Well, a little background. Before I marched through '78, I was and that was pretty much all local kids. Went and was on staff for a couple of years. Then I left the activity for like 4 or 5 years at least, and got back when Skyers were looking for some management help, and got kind of into the role of core director because the person before me had left all of a sudden. So I'm going into the '86 season, 27, 28 years old, whatever I was, had never taken a core on the road myself. And watching all these kids come from all over the place. And being from Kansas and the staff makeup that we had, a lot of our kids came from what I guess you would call the Bible Belt. Okay. We're talking Texas, we're talking Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and also because different connections from the East Coast, Boston, New York, and a couple kids from overseas over those 3 years. So it was just a melting pot of kids, which it happens in all corps. But it was somewhat new to us because we were a very local corps for many years, and then when we started to really make some progress, as all corps do, you got to get kids from everywhere. And just sitting back and watching how kids of different ethnicities, religious, sexual orientation, all that different stuff, and how they could come together as a unit, respect each other's differences, which is not always easy, you know,
Incredible.
um, and and accept people for who they were, you know,
Wow.
and then figure out, okay, to make this work, we got to work our butts off, and we got to put a product on the field. And
Mhm.
and you have your different sections. You you have your drum line, who's got kind of the macho, we're the drummers, we're over here, leave us alone. At least the battery, not so much maybe the front ensemble. Um, they're a little more normal. And then you got the color guard, which can be quite unique in coming from all different backgrounds. Um, and then you got the horn line, which is again, made up of all kinds of backgrounds. So just to watch these three units, come together, um, and try to put a product on the field that represents all of them. And it was just fascinating. And I remember it was '87. We had, I can't remember his name. He was of Indian descent, and he had to wear the turban and all that kind of
I
stuff.
remember him.
And
I remember
he
him.
was in the front ensemble. I just can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was quite unique, And not only did he conform to us because he's not supposed to take that turban off, and I know he did several times. Okay, and it was fascinating to the kids, because he had quite long hair, and brushing it and all this stuff. It was quite unique, and uh, so just to watch that and see how these kids adapted to each other and realize that, hey, it's not all about where I come from in the middle of Texas. All right. And realizing that the stereotypes maybe aren't quite as true as you think they are.
Yeah.
And that, just because you're different doesn't mean you can't have a common goal, can't work together and produce something. And I just found it quite fascinating because I learned too. I grew up in Kansas and stuff, and it's a little side story. So when I moved to Wisconsin to get married, all my friends, stuff came up to Wisconsin, and they all look around and going, "This is awful generic up here." I'm trying to think of the word I want to use, but there's not a lot of diversity up in northern
Uh,
Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
And as there wasn't a lot of diversity at times in the middle of Kansas either. And I just found that, and I think you find it in all drum corps, but I just found that unique to sit back and watch how this worked. And the same thing with staff. I mean, we had staff from all over the place, and how they melded together, and how they had come from different backgrounds and stuff. So I just find it quite unique and quite fascinating.
Yeah, I share that sentiment, and I will tell you that that is the single best thing I love about drum corps. And I'm so glad you hit on it. And it's great to hear it from the perspective of the core director.
Yeah, it was,
Um,
and you had a unique opportunity. You marched here, but then you also went out to BD, Blue Devils, so you saw another melting of different people from a whole different perspective than what you probably saw in Kansas.
Absolutely, and the two experiences are without question the reason for all of my successes today.
Oh, I
And
agree. We all grow up, we all grew up and figured out how to get it done, and
exactly,
it just goes to the next thing you do in life.
just what I learned from Skyriders is just do your job, and you have to learn how to do your job with all of these mixes of different peoples from different backgrounds. And I think ultimately that was really the greatest thing I got out of drum corps, as well as many others. And again, to hear from your perspective is something really special. Really, really appreciate it. Great story, Dale. Thank you.
Good. Thanks.